of my life. Give me strength through stress and strife. Help me live with dignity. Let me know serenity. Fill me with all vision. Clean the mind of fear and confusion. When my thoughts flow restlessly, let peace find a home in me. Spirit of great mystery, hear the still small voice in me. Help me live my wordless creed as I comfort those in need. Fill me with compassion, be the source of my intuition. Then when life is done for me, let love be my legacy.
Good morning, and welcome to the Emerson Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Marietta, Georgia, and our online streaming service. Thank you, Bruce, and choir, as much as we have, for our beautiful music this morning. My name is Michael Myers, and I'm a member of the Buildings and Grounds Committee and a member of the worship team, and as such is why I'm greeting you this morning. And for those of you where this is your first time with our service or you've been away for a while, I welcome you very well and hope you are nourished in heart and mind by our service this morning. If you'd like to see our order of service, it's at our website at emersonuu.org. I repeat, if you want to see our order of service, it's at emersonuu.org. Following our service today, you are invited to attend our second hour services, which are Zoom meetings. One will be Sermon Reflections, hopefully by Ed Cosper, because my internet is down, so I can't do it, plus others. Those will be at 11:15 this morning, and you can see what those are, again, at the website at emersonuu.org. Our chalicene lighting words today are from David Bumbaugh. We are here dedicated to the proposition that beneath all of our differences, behind all of our diversity, that there is a unity that binds us forever together, in spite of time and death and the space between the stars. We pause in silent witness to this unity. There's my candle. As our service begins, please take a moment to greet those around you online with our repeating congregational affirmation. Why did you make those words so big? We need not think alike to love alike. In the spirit of beloved community, welcome to Emerson, and I hope you enjoy our service.
Beautiful and new things I love about you, day by day. Was that, were we playing Name That Tune?
No.
I thought that's what we were playing.
Well, I'm glad you got it.
Good morning,
It was just a
everyone.
little bit of it. I love that song, though.
I love that song too. And good morning to all. My name is Reverend Deborah Bennett, and as always, it is a joy to be here with you this morning, and I truly hope that no one showed up an hour ago. Did everybody remember to turn their clocks back? I know. I
Yes.
bet Bruce was kind of here at 5 a.m. knocking on the door, wondering where we all were.
Just my regular time.
Just his regular time. Well, today is the first day of November, and we have a very special service planned. Today is the day we do our service of remembrance, and it is a time where we pause and we honor and we remember our loved ones who have passed before us. This idea of setting aside sacred time of remembrance is one that is held by many, many traditions. And our ritual table this morning is set to acknowledge many of these. And I thank our Director of Religious Education, Beth Klein, for creating this beautiful table. And I'll ask the AV team to show it to you now. Today we honor what's known as the Day of the Dead. Excuse my Spanish, but it's Dia de los Muertos. How'd I do? Okay. It's observed on November 1st and 2nd in Mexico and other Latin American countries, and it's a time where the dead are welcomed back and celebrated. In the home, burning incense may invite the spirits to enter and partake of their favorite foods, which have been set out on tables or home altars decorated with flowers and photos of departed family members. What is not consumed by the dead provides a feast for those that are living. Leftovers from the meal are often taken to a cemetery and laid on the graves of ancestors or distributed to the community. The event often includes processions, pageantry, elaborate food, bright decorations, and even fireworks. And while this is a time of mourning for the beloved dead, the pervading atmosphere is one of celebration. For Western Christians, All Hallows Eve on October 31st marks the beginning of All Saints' Day, concluding today, November 1st. It honors all the saints, known and unknown. Its intent is to celebrate all the saints, including those who are not or are no longer celebrated individually. All Souls' Day follows on November 2nd and is a Roman Catholic day of remembrance for friends and loved ones who have passed, and it developed alongside of All Saints' Day. Now, according to some sources, the idea for All Saints' Day goes back to Greek Christians in the 4th century in honor of all martyrs and saints, and it was Pope Gregory IV that made All Saints' Day an authorized holiday in 837. It is believed to not be a coincidence that these dates coincide with the pagan rituals that were taking time during that time. In fact, most sources show All Hallows Eve as originating from the ancient Celtic harvest festivals, particularly the Gaelic festival of Samhain. The evening of October 31st until the eve of November 1st marks this pagan celebration. And here are some words about this holiday from Laura Tradd, who is part of Emerson's pagan group. She says, many pagans believe that, like nature itself, the natural process of life and death is a cyclical one. A tree grows from an acorn, reaches towards the sun, takes in the carbon dioxide from the air, and produces oxygen. And as the tree grows, it sprouts new acorns that fall to the forest floor and become new trees. And when the trees die, they become part of the earth again. It nourishes new life that has grown in the soil, made richer by death. So Samhain, which is usually spelled H-A-I-N, but it's pronounced Samhain, is the pagan holiday celebrating both the beginning of the pagan new year and the end of the old year. As the days grow shorter and the darkness lingers a bit longer, the goddess is celebrated as the crone. This is the wise woman who is past her childbearing years. Let's hear it for crones. Whoop. Many pagans believe that at this time of year, this veil, the veil between the living and those that have passed on, grows very, very thin, and that communication between the two is possible. So today we honor these sacred holidays that reside on many calendars throughout the world, and also welcome you into our very own ritual of remembrance. So a little later in the service, I'll be inviting you into that ritual time. It's a time that we are going to be able to also see if we can let that veil become a little bit thinner. But for this morning, let's begin by joining in a question that many of us ask over and over: where do we come from? Please join us in our opening hymn, Rise in Body or Spirit. And as always, I ask you in these mornings, those of you at home, open the windows and let your neighbors hear what you're doing this morning.
Deborah,
Oh,
can I say something before we hear this hymn?
I think so. Let's hear what.
Listen as you sing, because a member, James, created the accompaniment that goes with this hymn. You
Oh,
will hear Ann and
beautiful.
James singing, but the accompaniment is not it is James. It's beautiful.
Awesome. Thank
So
you.
sing and enjoy, but it's quite beautiful.
And
So thank you, James.
Yeah, and thank you to our hymn singers this morning, Ann Mason and James Poteet. Please join us. It's coming. I can tell. It's the silence before the fullness of the song. AV team, are we coming?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is becoming mystery. 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 Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going?
That was just lovely. Thank you so much. Well, it's time for our story for all ages. So I'd love to have the young and the young at heart join me. This morning I wanted to share one of my very favorite stories. I have loved this book since probably for 40 years. It's just one of my favorites. And it's called Badger's Parting Gifts. It's so appropriate for today. You know, Badger was just a reliable, wonderful animal. I have a little stuffed badger right here. Hello, Badger. He was reliable. He was dependable. He knew everything, but he was very, very, very old. And Badger knew that soon it was his turn to die. Now, he wasn't afraid of death at all, not at all. Dying only meant that he left his body behind. And because his body wasn't working as well as it used to, that really wasn't his big concern. The only worry he had was about how his friends would take his death. You know, how would they feel when he was gone? Hoping to get them prepared mentally, Badger told them that someday soon he would be going down what he called the long tunnel. Now, since badgers are famously great tunnelers, he asked them that they wouldn't be too sad when he was gone. So one day, as Badger was watching his two friends, Mole and Frog, race down a hillside, he felt especially old and tired. He wished more than anything that his old legs could run with him, but he knew that he just couldn't do it. He watched Mole and Frog for a good long time, enjoying the sight of his friends, just having an awesome, fun afternoon. But it was late, and so Badger decided to go home. He wished the moon good night, and made his way down to the warm fire, all the way down deep underground to his den. He had some supper, and he sat down at his desk to write a letter. When he had finished the letter, he settled down in his rocking chair, and he rocked to and fro near the fire. He gently rocked. Soon he found himself fast asleep. Good night, Badger. And he had a strange, yet wonderful dream. This dream was so amazing that it found him running, like running at the speed of a badger, fast as fast can be. And ahead of him was a very, very long tunnel. His legs felt strong and sure as he ran towards the tunnel. He no longer needed his walking stick, so he threw it to the side and ran and ran and ran, and soon he found himself in the long passageway until his paws no longer touched the ground. He felt himself turning end over end, rolling and tumbling and falling, but nothing in his body hurt. He felt really free, just as if he had fallen out of his body. The following day, Badger's friends gathered anxiously outside of his den, knowing that he hadn't been out in the morning like he always used to be, greeting them and telling everyone good morning. Fox went downstairs to the den and slowly realized that Badger was gone. Badger had left a letter, and it read this. It was dated last night. Dear friends, I've gone down the long tunnel. Bye-bye. Signed, Badger. The animals were so sad. They loved Badger. Mole was especially lost. He was alone. He was desperately unhappy. And outside, something started to happen. Snowflakes began to fall. As the snowflakes fell, it got colder and colder, and the animals realized that as snow covered the countryside, that it was time for winter, and that was a time when they all stayed inside. But it couldn't conceal the sadness that they felt at losing Badger. Badger had always been there whenever anyone needed him. The animals all wondered how they would even go forward. As spring came near, the animals often visited each other and talked about the days when Badger was alive. Mole was very good at using scissors. Chop, 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 chop. And Badger had taught him how to do an amazing thing. It took a whole day, but at the end of the day, Mole was able to cut moles holding hands in paper art. So it was very special. Now, the whole floor was covered with the rejects, of course, but Badger stuck right there with him until he had mastered that, succeeded in making the complete chain of moles with their paws attached. Now, Frog, you'll never guess this one. He is an excellent skater. So Frog talked about the time when Badger cautiously guided him out onto the ice and stuck with him until he had the confidence to glide out on his own. Fox was a dapper dresser, and Fox remembered the days when Badger taught him how to properly tie a necktie. And now Fox was always correctly dressed, with some ties he'd made up on his own. Now came Mrs. Rabbit. Mrs. Rabbit told the funny story about how when she was a young bunny, she always wanted to cook. And it was Badger who shared his very secret family gingerbread recipe so that she could make gingerbread bunny cookies with mold that Badger had given her. All these things were just too good to be true. And they realized, as they had these special memories of Badger, that Badger had each taught them something to do very, very well. And he had given them each something to treasure. A parting gift that would become more special each time it was passed on to others. On a warm day, as Mole was walking down a hillside where he'd last seen Badger when he was running with, Mole was running with Fox, I believe, he wanted to thank his friend Badger for all these kind gifts. "Thank you, Badger," he said, believing that Badger could hear him, and somehow he knew that Badger did. This story makes me think of all the people who have passed away that I love and what they gave me. My husband Mike absolutely loved to hike, so I'm inviting each of you to meet me at Kennesaw National Battlefield Environmental Loop Trail today at 4 o'clock for a very easy hike, and we'll do it in honor of people that we love. Will you please join me in the song of dedication?
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind and fellowship. Thus do we covenant with each other. Thus do we promise to each other.
Good morning again. My name is Beth Klein, and I serve Emerson as a member of our pastoral care team and also as your director of UU Family Ministry. The pastoral care team members are available as listening ears and caring hearts to support you during challenging times. You can contact us at our email address, pastoralcare@emersonuu.org. At this time in our service, we pause to share the personal joys, sorrows, and concerns of our Emerson community. Each Sunday, we light our vigil bowl. Its light represents the light of hope for the peaceful resolution of all conflicts on our planet, and it honors all the dedicated people who serve us, including those on the front line of the COVID-19 virus battle. We also have a special candle here. Reverend Deborah will help us light. It's a special candle to acknowledge the Cherokee and Muskogee nations of people who lived on this land before us. May this candle remind us of our interconnection, and may our actions help heal all nations of people. We have a joy today from the Weinstein and Draven family. Samantha shares that she is expecting a baby in 2021. Yoo-hoo! And they are all delighted with this really great, joyous news. We know that there are joys, and sorrows, and concerns left unspoken today. As Reverend Deborah lights the candles for them, please feel free to speak aloud the name of anyone you're holding closely in your heart this morning. Mike, Janita, Red. Let us all send our heartfelt caring intentions to all people, everywhere, by offering the Buddhist prayer of loving kindness. Please say it with me. The words are projected here and also printed in your order of service. May all beings be filled with loving kindness. May they be free from harm and suffering. May they be well in body, heart, and mind. May they be at peace. Blessed be.
Thank you, Beth. And thank you, hymn singers, for that beautiful opening hymn. I'm going to invite us now to begin our ritual of remembrance. So we're going to have several parts to this morning. First, I'm going to ask you to gather some things. When we come back from gathering our things, we'll have some poetry, there'll be some time of silence, and then we'll have some music as well. So if you have not done so already today, I'm going to give you a moment to gather 3 different things. The first is a photo of someone that you love who has passed. It could be some other kind of remembrance of them, or even simply their name written down. The second is to find a candle, if you have one, or something else that you can light. And the third would be to get a piece of paper and a pencil, because I'm going to give you an opportunity to write a few things. So if you'd like, let's go ahead and take a moment to gather those things, and Bruce will serenade us. Gather your things. Michael's going to share a poem with us, and as he does, I invite you to create some sort of altar for yourself in this beloved one. Maybe a little space you can clear off and set a candle and set their picture, and in whatever way feels right for you to create that space. And then after the poem, I'm going to give you some opportunity to write on the paper. And I'll tell you about that in a moment. So let's go ahead and take time now to create your altar.
From The Living Years by Mike and the Mechanics. I wasn't there that morning when my father passed away. I didn't get to tell him all the things I had to say. I think I caught his spirit later that same year. I'm sure I heard his echo in my baby's newborn tears. I just wish I could have told him in the living years.
So as you feel drawn to do, go ahead and use that piece of paper and pen. And I'm going to invite you to take a moment now to write a note to your beloved. It can be anything, perhaps something that you did not say in their living years that you want them to know now, or just a message that you would like to communicate with them now. So go ahead and take that time to have a communication with your beloved. perhaps begin to finish up your writing, placing that writing on the altar that you've created. And if you've only done it in your mind, you can just imagine these words, whatever words that you would like to communicate. You can just imagine them sitting on an altar, sitting on a special place with a picture of your beloved. In our reading today, I'm going to invite you to join us with the response. And the response is simply, we remember them. At the rising of the sun and at its going down,
At the blowing of the wind and the chill of winter.
We remember them.
at the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring,
We remember them.
At the blueness of the skies and the warmth of the summer.
We
remember
remember
them.
them.
at the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn.
We remember them.
At the beginning of the year and when it ends.
We remember them.
As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us. As we
We
remember.
remember them.
When we are weary and in need of strength.
We remember them.
When we are lost and sick at heart,
We remember them.
When we have joy we crave to share.
We remember them.
when we have decisions that are difficult to make,
We remember them.
When we have achievements that are based on theirs.
We remember them.
as long as we live, they too will live, for they are now part of us. As we
We remember
remember
them.
them. those that have passed are not under the ground, but everywhere and all around us. It suggests that they have a pact with the living, with us, that they are in the rustling of the leaves, in the wailing child in our homes and in the crowd, and they are there, able and ready for connection with us. It's a soothing thought. The idea of connecting with those that has passed is as old as humanity, and I'm sure that one of the first things humans did was to ponder this question of death. And exactly where does someone go when they die? One moment they're here with us, talking, engaging, creating memories, and the next we are confronted with the fact that the body, the place, the only place we knew to look for them, is gone. It's no longer their home. So how can we continue to be in contact with them without the body? And is there anything to be in contact with? I don't know this for sure, but my guess is that religion itself would not exist if it was not for death. Theological belief, humanistic, shamanistic, philosophical ideas, all in some way address this mystery of death and the role of the living in relationship to those who have died. Now, most of us would agree with this idea that our loved ones are kept alive in our memories and in the stories that we share about them and through the legacy of the wisdom and the gifts that they have shared with us. Society as a whole supports this idea and encourages us to make memory books, take photographs, and to make sure that we leave a legacy of love behind us. But this morning, I want to go a little bit beyond these ideas, and I'm going to ask the question, is it possible to connect in more tangible ways with those who have passed? It's a topic that's fascinated people, I think, across all cultures for eons. Of course, who hasn't heard of the seances of the 1800s when the spiritualists would gather around a table and claim to be able to hear the voices of people who had died? This idea is alive and well in our own times. There are mediums, some on television, some just a phone call away, offering to help us hear our loved ones. And there's no shortage of ghost stories, of course, and novels that can intrigue us and cause us to wonder, is it possible to cross this veil between life and death and come back again? I even saw an article recently that proclaimed Google and Alexa would soon be able to help us communicate with the dead. Leave it to the tech giants to not want to miss out on an opportunity to help us connect more. But are these just gimmicks? Are they stories? Are they tales designed to help us feel better and perhaps to make somebody money? Or is it possible to have real connections with somebody who has passed on? Now, many of us use these terms such as passed on or transitioned as a euphemism for the much more definitive word died. Some would say this is an avoidance of the reality, the permanence of death. But for me and others, I use this phrasing to clarify the thought, my belief, that death is not an ultimate end, but a transition. Now, to where or how, we may be unsure, but a transition of form nonetheless. Hey, after all, if the first law of thermodynamics applies to us as energy beings, we must be somewhere. Because that law states that energy is neither created nor destroyed, but only changes form. And I realize for some that this changing of form clearly just means from physical form to memory. But for others, passing on refers to the soul or the spirit or the energy of some remnant of the individual traveling to another place or time or even a level of consciousness that can still be accessible. Just like water changes to steam and we can barely see it. The soul or the spirit or the energy of a person may be somewhere, just unseen with the naked eye. Now, many people have had experiences that would affirm this idea of a continuation of life. And so let's talk about a few of those today, and you can make your own decisions about how you feel about the ability to connect beyond the veil. Let's begin with connections that happen right at the time of death. In his book on Celtic wisdom, the author John O'Donohue says this. He says, when a person is closer to death, the veil between this world and the eternal world is very thin. In some cases, the veil is actually removed for a moment so that you can indeed be given a glimpse into the eternal world. And he goes on to speak about the experiences many report witnessing those in the process of dying as having. Friends and loved ones who have passed before can be seen by one who is in the dying process. They often reach out and sometimes even have conversations with them just prior to death. Now, this phenomenon actually has a name and it's been studied. It's known as deathbed visions. It's been actually documented since at least the 1500s. And over in our time, hospice nurses, doctors, and those who are sitting with the dying report that in the last hours or in the last days of someone's life, many have seen some sort of vision of being visited by either those they know that had previously died or some comforting presence who is there to help them cross over. Now, almost universally, these visions create a sense of peace and calm to the person who is dying. As often the person who is dying is aware that the others are there to help them transition. Researcher and psychologist Dr. Marilyn Mendoza, who studies death, recounts many such stories in her book titled, "We Do Not Die Alone." And I love the subtitle to this book. Her subtitle to the book is, "Jesus is Coming to Get Me in a White Pickup Truck." I like that. I think mine's going to be a BMW blue convertible. But anyway, in the book, she recounts stories of many nurses and hospice workers who have been with the dying. Stories such as this one of a 52-year-old woman who was dying of a failed transplant. And the nurse recounts, she says she was terrified by dying, this woman, and often spoke about how she was never going to give in to death. But 2 days before her death, she kept looking over my shoulder and laughing, smiling at something standing behind me, and there was no one there. I asked the patient who she was talking to, and she told me her dead father. And then she said simply, "Okay, all right, it's okay. I'm not afraid." Another nurse shares, "I've seen patients die with their dead relatives standing by, and I've seen patients die with only their living relatives in the room." She says, "I prefer the deaths where you know someone has come to get them. Then you know there is something more than what you get in this realm. It adds to the mystery of life and death. At least for me, it keeps me hopeful that when it is my time to go, someone I love will come back and get me." Regardless whether you believe these events are hallucinations from a dying brain or medication, or are true spiritual experiences, the impact on the dying, the medical staff, and family can really be profound and help soften the grieving process. Now, our second example I want to talk about today is the much more concrete, they're more rare, and yet for those that have experienced them, very real experiences of connection. These are examples of physical connection with someone who has passed. Sometimes this comes in one form when someone has what they call a sign. One doctor actually shared their experience they had after his mother passed, and subsequently his wife. He says, "My wife died in January," and goes on to share that when my mother died decades ago, I found several pennies everywhere, And I knew it was no coincidence when you walk to the mailbox and not see any pennies, but find them on the way back up the driveway. My great-grandchild started calling them pennies from heaven. After my wife died in January, the pennies started appearing again and haven't stopped. I find stray pennies in the house, in the woods, around buildings, and when I am walking the dog. Sometimes I am told where to walk to find them. And when I go to shop, I am told where to park, and I find a penny near the trunk of the car when I return. I also read an account of a woman who is sure that as she drove home in her car after her father's death, that she felt a physical sensation she was convinced was her father communicating with her. She described speaking to her father as he lay on his deathbed, and after telling him how much she loved him and giving him permission to let go after what had been a long and painful illness, she asked him to give her a sign after he passed, letting her know that he was okay. And a few hours later, as she drove home with her mother in the front seat of the car with no one in the back seat, she felt as if someone was kicking the back of her seat 5 clear bunches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like her young daughter would do when she was in the car, only her daughter was not in the car this time. Her father had a good sense of humor, and the woman was convinced that this was her father communicating with her. For the one who did not experience these type of events, the incidents can simply be called a coincidence or the result of deep grief. But truly, for the person who has experienced this, it is clear and real. And I can attest to that last statement, as I have my own story that I'm going to share with you now. It's a type of story that's not unfamiliar for those who have lost a loved one. Now, my brother and I were never extremely close in our lifetime. I do have memories of us playing together when we were young, but as we were only 22 months apart, we always seemed to have different interests. He was into Star Trek and model cars, and I was into exploring nature and making up stories in my head. We did have moments of being friends during high school when one of his best friends became my first love. But when I got into natural food and at the age of 18, and then at the age of 22 moved into an ashram, we kind of went our separate ways, only to connect occasionally at family gatherings or the occasional phone call we would give to each other. I had become a new age spiritual liberal, and he was a race car driving, mechanic, conservative atheist. And then one day, our relationship changed. It was May 15th, 2017. My husband and I were helping the movers take the last of the boxes to the moving van as I was transitioning from my internship site back to our shared home in New York. I remember the moment so clearly. I was walking out of the apartment, and I took a look back. I had a box in hand, and I remember it was about 11 a.m. And this interesting energy came over me. The room took on kind of this crystal clear space. It was like my mind really opened up, and I remember my heart just feeling really full and peaceful. It was akin to spiritual experiences I had had in the past, and yet it was very different as well. At the time, I just chalked it up to the sublimeness of this transition and the joy of the completion of my ministerial internship time. The ride home was close to 3 hours and pretty uneventful. And when I arrived, my husband and I and the movers began to unload the moving truck. I remember coming into the house with a box in the hand, and I was standing at the bottom of the steps when my phone rang. The caller ID said it was my brother's wife, Sharon. Now, Sharon was not in the habit of calling me for no reason, so my first thought was concern for my nephew, who had been going through some hard times in his life. And then my mind quickly flashed to my parents, who lived near her and my brother. I answered the phone, both saying hi and asking if everyone was okay with one breath. And she paused, and in a soft voice, she said plainly, "Debbie, your brother has died today." Well, my mind spun into that expected how, when, where, all those questions. Turns out Sharon had been at work, and when she got home around 1 p.m., she found him on the bathroom floor. And it was later estimated that he had a heart attack that took his life around 11 a.m. I hung up the phone and walked in a daze up to my bedroom. I still had that box in my hand, and I remember sitting on the bed, expecting tears to flow. And then it hit me. It was like all of a sudden I felt this intense wave of my brother's energy coming so clearly into the space. It was really like he was there, and it really startled me. And at that moment, it was like this wave of energy came not just to me, but actually through me. It was like up through my body, up through the top of my head. And then I heard my brother's voice. And it was interesting. He said, "Whoa, I get it." And then he said, "This is so cool." Just like he would say it. And I was startled. It was like I was imagining him kind of like, he was at the top of Ferris wheel, and he was looking down, and he was just like so amazed at like how cool it all looked. "This is so cool," he repeated. And then there was this magical moment, and I felt myself also looking down. It was like I was looking down, I could see myself sitting on the bed, and I could see this broader vision. It was like at the same time I was connected to a physical self, but also this eternal self and his eternal self. Literally, it was like he was experiencing this interconnected moment, this reality, and he was sharing it with me. The veil between this life and the life he was now experiencing felt so thin. It just felt actually like it was lifted, and for a moment, I swear I got a peek at it. I remember laughing and feeling exhilarated and also peaceful all at the same time. And it's hard to explain, but I will tell you there's 100% knowing in my bones that death is definitely nothing to be afraid of. And this feeling of this open space of connection really stayed for me for about 5 days. I was just in this space where I just was constantly feeling this thinness of the veil. And what followed was very interesting, because I will tell you that my connection with my brother now feels so much deeper than it ever did in life. It's like we had this shared experience that will never go away. I really feel that relationship didn't end on May 15th. In fact, it's deepened. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be one of those waiting for me to help me cross over when it is time. The poet David White has said beautifully, "The death of anyone close to us is always a form of salutation, a simultaneous goodbye to their physical presence, and a deep hello to a more intimate, imaginal relationship now beginning to form in their absence." Beloveds, I realize that we all hold different beliefs and thus may have different interpretations of deathbed visions, of physical manifestations, and spiritual connections between the living and the dead. And that's okay, because it's truly such a mystery. So whether you have experienced your loved one connecting with you from beyond the veil, through words, through a feeling sense, through nature, through a kick in the back, and whether that connection has come in the form of memories that you nourish and cherish, or through gifts of compassion that they have shared with you. However that connection has come, may you truly feel comforted, knowing that they are with you. They are with us always. So blessed be and amen. And please join us in our closing hymn, "Comfort Me."
Comfort me
Sing with me. Sing with me. Sing with me, oh my soul. Speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me, oh my soul. Speak for me. Speak for me. Speak for me, oh my soul. Dance with me. Dance with me. Dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me. Dance with me. Dance with me, oh my soul. Comfort me. Comfort me. Comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me. Comfort me. Comfort me, oh my soul.
As our worship service comes to an end, we hope that you will be leaving feeling nurtured in heart and mind together. We invite you to conclude our time of worship with one final act. As you are able, please affirm your support for this continued work of this congregation and the ongoing ministries that we share through a monetary offering. When we give, we say yes to something we value. We sincerely hope that you have found great value here today and will return again to worship with us and to join as a community working for a positive change in our world. Thank you for all you do to make Emerson a truly beloved community.
Thank you. Thank you for your continued generosity, and thank you for joining us this morning. And thank you to all those here in our sanctuary, Michael Myers, our worship associate, Ann Mason and James Poteet, our hymn singers, Beth Klein, thank you for our beautiful story. Ed Casper, thank you for keeping us all organized, and our wonderful AV team, Keith Eklund and Claude Fravian, and of course, the one and only Bruce King. I also want to thank hugely all those that put together that anthem. It was so beautiful. That was not professionally hired singers. Those were our own singers. Aren't they? Weren't they amazing, Bruce? I mean, they were just utterly amazing.
That was the Emerson Ladies Virtual Ensemble.
They were just breathtaking. I really, when I first listened to it, I was like, wow, where did we get that recording? And then I realized.
By the way, that is the first time you've ever heard from the Emerson Ladies Virtual
Well, I hope it is not the last. Thank you. All of those ladies in our virtual choir. It was beautiful. And Bruce, you put the slides together?
I did. There were
Thank
some
you.
credits after that. There were a few ladies involved. Kathy, obviously.
Awesome. Yes, Kathy Middleman, our choir director.
And
Thank you so much.
Dave Schimmel really helped us out on the audio. I tell you, having him pull us
Pull that
into
together?
the same space is
Wow,
quite beautiful. He did a
wow.
great job.
And our opening hymn, James Poteet, That was awesome, the way you pulled all that together. So anyway, you can tell I just love everybody here, and they're awesome, and thank you so much for supporting us. I want to give one shout out before we close this morning. As you all know, this is election week. I hope almost everybody has already gone out and voted. If you have not, please get out there on Tuesday and vote. If you have already voted and you can lend support at the polls, there are ways to do that. There was information in our notebook. There's also going to be a special vine going out tomorrow with some information as well. It can be anything from just helping to feed people that are probably going to be standing at polls for hours and hours on Tuesday, so we're taking out snacks to them, and some of us are doing some poll watching to make sure there's no shenanigans going on, so those opportunities are there. Also in that vine are going to be some other opportunities to connect into. One is a special text network so that we can stay connected, because depending on what unfolds this week in our world, we may have some rapid action that we want to do, and that will be a way to stay connected. And we have two beautiful opportunities coming up. One is on Thursday. So on Thursday evening, and there'll be a link in your Vine about this, we are doing an Interfaith Unity in Community, and this is sponsored by the newly reformed Cobb County clergy group that I am part of. So we're doing a Zoom call. It will be an hour. People from all of our communities are invited, and anyone's invited, and we'll come together, we'll say some words, and we'll also have a chance to connect with each other. And then here at Emerson next Saturday from 2:30 to 4, please plan to come out if you are able. We are going to do a demonstration of unity and love. No matter what is going on, no matter how the election turned out, no matter what the state of the union is in that moment, we're going to gather here, we're going to hold signs, and we're going to proclaim that we are better together in unity and love. So please join us on Thursday online, and then Saturday 2:30 to 4 here at Emerson. You will get information about that on through the email if you're on our email list. If you're not on our email list, please go to our website and get on the email list so you can receive that information. So thank you for a beautiful service. I'm going to end with these words from Anne Lamont, who reminds us that you will lose someone you can't live without, and your heart will be badly broken. And the bad news is that you will never completely get over the loss of your beloved. But she says there is also good news. The good news is that they will live forever in your heart, in your broken heart that will not seal back up so they can connect there. So may you go through this day feeling ever more connected to all those that you love. Blessed be.
As we extinguish the chalice, I ask that you join with me in the final response written in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the truth of light, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again.
Peace and injustice, go vote, get your neighbors to vote, and take peace wherever you go. Blessed be, everyone.